Coming up on More Than Before.
That's how I've grown, trying to humble myself to try to become somebody who serves others as opposed to self-serving.
This is More Than Before with Nathan Cook.
Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm so excited to have my good friend in studio today. We are going to get a really rich story, and I've known him for a number of years. He is a father, he is a husband of 22 years, 3 incredible boys that are doing some really fun things in life. I think they have a really awesome trajectory for what God's doing in their life. And so I'm really excited to dive into his story. He is currently the director of production at Athey Creek Fellowship, which is a kind of a small little church. No, it's a pretty big church here in Oregon. And I'm excited to dive into his story, how he got to where he is. He is such a genuine guy, and I can't wait for you to hear his story. And I hope it enriches the way that you see your life today. My good friend, Tim Miller, how are you, brother?
I'm doing well.
Yeah?
How are you?
I'm doing great. It's good to have you on.
Thank you. It's good to be on.
You're such a busy and sought after guy, meaning that there's always someone that's trying to ask you about something. Usually it's fires though, right?
Well, and on the intro, I just have to say Athey Creek Church. We just redid a name change. It used to be Athey Creek Christian Fellowship. Now Athey Creek Church.
Athey Creek Church.
Athey Creek Church.
I
Nice
like
and
it.
simple.
Well, it is nice and simple. It's funny because I kept trying to rehearse that in my head. I was like, how do I say, because you don't normally, yeah. So that's really awesome. That's exciting. So, hey, if you guys are listening to this, brand new, and if you're an Athey Creeker, a Creeker as we would call you, stop using Athey Creek Christian Fellowship. No longer. It's just Athey Creek Church.
Athey Creek Church. Yes, I'm busy, and not by design, but I think that's the way that I was created. I'm always running around to do the next thing, and it's busy because I do a lot of the church, but also now you got me nervous because I'm the guy in front of the microphone. I'll just say I'm busy.
So I'll say this: a good friend of mine, Gunnar Simonson, he was on a number of months ago. And one of the things, because I was going to interview him, and he's a voice for the Beaverton baseball team. And one of the things that he said to me, because I was going to interview him, I called him up the night before. I was like, dude, I'm so nervous. Like, I'm freaking out. Like, I'm going to mess this up.
You was saying that, or you're
No,
saying
I was
that?
saying that to
You're
him
saying
as the person that's going to interview him. And he said, I'll tell you one thing that I learned in journalism school. My professor came in, and I was super nervous to start interviewing people. And he said, Gunnar, the microphone is just a cup of coffee between two friends.
Yep.
And as soon as he said that, I was like, okay, like it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, our conversation is just going to be enriched and it'll be great. So
I feel like I read that once with an interview with John Mayer when he made his album Continuum, which is when you look on Apple Music, you look at the artist and they say, essential album. You look at John Mayer, that's an essential album for John Mayer. But I believe it was the drummer in studio, where an artist, when they can perform in a room, they can make beautiful music, but as soon as you put a microphone in front of them, they feel they're performing to the microphone.
Yeah.
And I think the drummer was saying that you're not playing to the microphone, you're not playing to the recording. The microphone is there to capture what's happening in real life. It's there to take a snapshot of what went on in that room in that moment.
You know what I love about that is it kind of reminds me of, so I used to do choir in college, which is really weird. I don't know. There's just, I wasn't in choir. I think
Which voice?
baritone bass.
Okay.
So don't make me sing anything. Like in the early mornings, that was a really good bass. let's say that.
You got the fry tone.
Yeah. But I remember there was one point where we were being told to vocalize to the back of the room. And actually, as you were talking, it kind of reminded me of just a thought to have of when we are even in that setting where we're able to, whether that's speak or sing and you're in a large group of people, you think of the person, the least of these in the room that you're speaking to. And, the people who are in the nosebleed section, are you projecting to the microphone, or are you projecting out to that one person that you're saying, hey, this is for you? So I don't know. I kind of almost feel that even right now, it's just like for you, you're a super humble guy, which is what I love about you. And I know it's one of those things of as soon as it comes out of my mouth, you're like, please stop talking. He's so humble and he's so, but there is something since I've known you that you like to be in the background. I actually am curious. Have you always kind of been like that, to always want to be in the background, or did you want to be in the forefront?
No, I wanted to be the guy in the forefront. And I mean, there is still something fun in being a person that gets to make decisions. I get to help drive culture in a department, and there's a part of me that the grass is always greener on the other side, where I love being able to be a director, but I shy away from it sometimes too. My background professionally is mixing audio, and I love mixing audio, but I also love training people and letting them experience that, letting them do it. So I flip back and forth. But I did used to want to be the guy that was always up front, but I love being able to support people and do something well.
So when you were growing up, what was family life like? What were your family dynamics like?
Well, I was the youngest of 3 sons, so 2 older brothers. My oldest is 7 years older than me. The next oldest is 2 years older than me. I mean, I just remember growing up and there was just a lot of activity around sports or various family things. My dad worked a lot at the Portland International Airport. He was an air traffic controller, and my mom stayed at home. And then we had a lot of church. We grew up in church. And so I was very involved with youth group. I was very involved with school. And then I also started getting very involved with music beginning in the 4th grade.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to like sibling rivalry, especially with boys, how well did you and your siblings get along? I mean, I know there's that age gap, but I mean, even that age gap lends to, hey, get out of my room, like don't touch my stuff. Right. How was that dynamic growing up for you?
For the most part, I think we got along really well, and I still get along really well with both my brothers. My oldest brother was old enough that there was a lot of really like cool things about him. He was the high schooler. He could drive. And so I just remember looking up to him and saying like, wow, you're so old. You're so cool. And very smart. He graduated with a degree in chemical engineering.
Oh, wow.
And the next brother, 2 years older than me, just also very smart, but closer. We had a little bit more sibling rivalry. I remember when he could drive, and he could drive me to high school early in the morning, as a freshman. And that's when I first started dating my now wife. But I used to get the Brute cologne that was like in the plastic container.
Yeah.
And I didn't think it lasted very long, so I put not just like a dab, like I put like a puddle in my hands and splashed it. And I don't know, as a 14-year-old, it made sense, right? Because I couldn't.
More is better.
Probably singe the nose hairs. But my brother and I would drive to high school at like 6:30 in the morning in a Volvo 240 DL yellow, and he would roll down the window and he'd say, "You stink," And
really, really inspiring for the day.
Yeah. But as we got into college, we also lived in the same house. We lived in a college co-op at Oregon State called Varsity House. And there was about 50 guys, Christian guys, that lived in this house together. And my brother, he and I were great friends. Yeah, so
that's really cool. And I love hearing the bond that you guys had as kids too. So there's a lot of different influences that people have when they're growing up. Sports is one of those things that a lot of people can relate with, because everyone has played some kind of sport at some point in their life, whether they're good or bad. Their parents are like, hey, you're going to go out for baseball. And then they get hit in the face and they're like, well, maybe you don't have the hand-eye coordination anymore. Let's move to something else. For you, music was a huge and has been a huge part of your life. How did you get introduced to music, and how's that kind of influenced who you are in terms of allowing you to blossom into who you were created to be?
with music, it just was something I loved. I can't even tell you which albums, but I remember being a kid, and I would sit down. I would really get into. I think this is actually later on in my growing up years, formative years. But I remember sitting down and just analyzing, pulling apart a great song, and then like sitting my mom down in front of the speaker and saying, listen to this background vocal, listen to some piano part that you may never hear. But then you listen on different speakers, you listen to it for the 300th time, and then you pull something out new and you're like, wow, that's awesome. I've loved this song before, but I've never heard this. I don't know. I was just drawn toward music. Some kids are drawn toward a basketball. And I did play sports. My dad did have all three of us boys involved with either a sport or with music at some point going through high school. When I was in fourth grade is when I first started playing music. We had an assembly at our elementary school, Uplands Elementary School, and they brought in the orchestral instruments. And I think when they said you can come up and meet and greet the different instruments, I want to say that I wanted to go to the cello first. Now, my mom would tell you different. She said that when I was younger, I saw a violin in a shop and said that I was going to play it.
You have to have that really inspiring story. I want to be a violinist, Mom.
Apparently. And at that assembly, there was a big line for the violins, a big line for the cellos. I think I was interested in going towards the cello, but there was no line for the viola. So
the path of least resistance.
Apparently. And so I played viola starting. I was a true violist. Some people actually transitioned from violin over to viola. Started in the fourth grade, started taking lessons in the fifth grade, and played up through college, and it was a lot of fun. I started playing guitar when I was in seventh grade, and then it's just fun. The way I started playing guitar was my brother and I found my mom's old Gibson Sunburst in the it was like in a paper cardboard type case, and we opened it up and found a chord book with a couple songs by Peter, Paul, and Mary, because it was my mom's guitar just left in the basement. And my brother, my brother that's 2 years older, Ben, he said, well, wait, hold on, can you play this? And so he pulled out I think it was a tape by a old Christian band called Whiteheart.
Yeah.
And they're a big hair, late 80s, early 90s rock band. And that was 80s back at the time, I think. And they had a song that was a ballad rock song that started with a bass line, do 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 do, and he said, "Can you figure that out on this?" And so I figured it out, and that was the beginning of playing guitar.
Wow!
I figured it out on an acoustic guitar. My fingers hurt after that, but it was a lot of fun.
I believe that the audiophile is the correct term for that. Someone that loves music, right?
I'm not actually sure, because I think an audiophile could be somebody who really loves like a craft, like a high fidelity type craft of music. I could be very wrong on that, but that might be somebody who, uses a specific needle with their, record player and understands speeds of EP and LP. There's a lot of people out there, kind of like yourself with coffee.
Myself with a lot of things, but you are like that also in terms of production. Mm-hmm. You look at things and you always are looking at how do you make things better? How do you make something pleasant to look at aesthetically? How do you make something pleasant to listen to? Have you? I love the story that you were talking about of how you'd sit your mom in front of the music and be like, "Hey, listen to this. Like, listen to the background vocals right here." Because I can relate to that. I would have my mother try and listen to things, except it wasn't beautiful. Probably from like what you were doing. You were probably have maybe some classical music or something like that.
No.
Mine was like DC talk. I'm like, listen to this rap bar, Mom, and she's like,
I think one of the first ones for me was Doobie Brothers.
Yeah.
And Black Water, and that was one that just listening to the fiddle part in Black Water, Doobie Brothers.
That's so cool. So when you first fell in love with music, was it what was it about the music? Was it like the dynamics of multiple sounds coming together? Was it the creation of something? What kind of drew your attention to it?
Boy, I don't know. I think I was honestly just created that way.
Yeah.
Like, I just love music. It's for a comparison. That's another thing I love. I love making analogies. I use them way more often than I should. So if you know a good way to make a good living off of analogies, then I'll write a book. But it's kind of like Ratatouille. Mm-hmm. And Remy, I think, is the rat, and he just loves food. And he tries to explain it to his brother who's eating garbage, and he's like, no, take that out of your mouth. Now try this, and close your eyes and focus, and he starts seeing colors that are orange with this bite. Now try a strawberry with it, and that's like blue or red, and now try them together, and then it starts sparking different things.
And that's for him, but for his brother, when he takes it, he's just like, yeah, that's good.
Yeah. And the brother starts to get a spark of that, but then he goes back to trash as well. And for me, that's what I love about music. Mm-hmm.
So when you were in high school, was music kind of the main focus then throughout high school? Or where did you kind of find you also said youth group was another big thing, which I can relate with that. What were your high school years like? Were you a good student? I would imagine you were probably a little bit of a recluse, possibly. I don't know. Maybe you were the outgoing, bubbly person that everyone was like, oh, Tim.
You know, when I said that I would be the person in front of the microphone and behind the microphone, I'm kind of all over the place. In high school is when I said my current wife and I started dating. So we started in 9th grade. Passing notes. That's when we officially started dating, which I have a 9th grader now, and I can't believe that's how old we were.
You're like, stop passing notes in class. Don't do that. You're too young. But Dad.
I was very involved with music, and I was somewhat involved with sports, but in high school, you just start to get really busy. Mm-hmm. And so music won that one. I was in a symphony at the time called Portland Youth Philharmonic. And in my sophomore through senior years, I was in the advanced symphony. My senior year, I was the principal of the viola section, which was a lot of fun. We got to travel to Banff one time. So there was a lot of music. I was involved with the school orchestra. I was involved with the city symphony. I had a group of friends that were my high school friends I loved to hang out with. That was the group that my wife was with as well. I was a very good student, made great grades. And then sophomore year, I went to a different school. Again, I'm all over the place. So I wanted to try a private school, and we went to Westside Christian High School. I went to Westside Christian, and it was a lot of fun there. I made a lot of new friends there as well. I was sophomore class, the Valentine's Court. I was the prince. So about 3/4 of the way through the year, we decided to move me back to public school. And I went through this season of saying, I wonder if I should try to be friends with a new group of friends. I had actually broken up with Jamie, who is now my wife at that time. Probably worst decision I ever made. And was trying to be with a different group of friends and, break out if I naturally look like a recluse. I was trying to be, more socially out there, fitting in. And one of the things that one of the people I was hanging out with wanted to do was go shoplifting. So I did get caught by the Tigard police at Meyer and Frank stealing cologne.
Oh, how everything comes full circle.
And I don't even know what it was. It wasn't the Brute. It was something that he picked out. I actually was, it was pretty funny. They showed us the security footage of it. And we had backwards hats and like super baggy clothing, like really baggy jeans. And we went to Meyer and Frank. It was about 9:00 at night. And I was the guy that was just like looking like this. And the security camera guys were probably bored, nothing else to do. They literally were following us from the moment we stepped in there, because there was like a lady in her 40s and us in the store. That's all they had.
It was going to be more exciting to watch.
And we're going like this the whole time, like trying to walk all cool. And so my friend actually grabbed 2 bottles of cologne, and then he's like, I got him, let's go. And we went out the door of the mall, and they were following right behind us. And they were pretty smart, actually. They waited until we took a couple steps outside, and they just watched us. And my buddy handed me one of the bottles. And as soon as he handed it to me, they grabbed my hand and pulled it behind my back and got me in an armbar.
This is back when security could actually do that and actually touch you.
Yeah, there were two of them. So one got me and one got my friend, and they said, you're following us. And they took us back to their security department and had to call and do a police report. So that was me in high school as well. So all over the place.
The rebel I think that's true of today's youth in a lot of senses, that a lot of youth, I think not even just of today, of all time, like once you get to that high school, junior high era, you're trying to figure out who you are, and you're trying to find a clique, a group of people that you can be yourself with, but you start to make decisions that lead you to be closer with a group that maybe may not be in alignment with maybe your upbringing or kind of who you're created to be. And so I find that really interesting, because a lot of kids today are struggling with identity, and they're in these groups and they're saying, oh, I want to find my identity in these groups. And half the people in the group, and when I say half, I mean all of them in the group, don't even know who they are. They're still figuring out who they are in life. As you look at your boys right now, like, how does that inspire you as a dad to speak into who they are today, knowing that you've been there and you can relate to where they are because you have one son that's getting up there in age.
Right.
How do you instill and kind of craft their identity to be grounded rather than, oh, I'm going to do this. Oh, I'm going to do that.
That's a great question. And as I was finishing up that last answer, I'm thinking, oh no, I mean, this whole podcast is going to be talking about me as a high schooler shoplifting at Meyer and Frank.
Your boys are, Dad, I can't believe it, you rebel. And then your wife's gonna be like, hey, come back here to the back room. I didn't realize that you were the bad boy.
Yeah. So with my kids and also with my team at the church, I've learned a lot of lessons to be in the position at work that I'm at now by being a dad, and some vice versa as well. Let me talk about some of the team first. So, for example, we had somebody recently who will remain unnamed. You know who you are.
If you ever listen to this.
And everybody on the production team knows who you are too. Because sometimes somebody will make a mistake. I can tell them 20 times, don't do this. And sometimes they have to learn it for themselves. And I mean, mixing on the audio console, you have banks of faders. You have something like 48 faders. This person accidentally started pushing up the wrong fader. So when the pastor came up to speak, he started playing background music. And he quickly caught himself. But I came up to him later and just sat next to him, and he said, you know how you always tell me to mute the background music channel, the iPod channel? Now I know why. And so I like to say he touched the burner, right? You learn lessons because you get burned by them sometimes. And I've made the same mistake or worse mistakes. And that's why I come and tell the team when I train somebody, don't do this, or do this, mute the iPod. But sometimes they have to learn that lesson through experience.
Yeah.
And, I've been given a lot of forgiveness and grace and mistakes that I've made in the past, and hopefully we can learn from mistakes that we've made. And I mean, it's a very biblical thing. I mean, I'm going to say a lot of things through a biblical lens. I work at a church, but
what?
But the Bible says that everybody's a sinner, but what you try to do is, if we confess our sins one to another, then we can repent from the sins. And repenting is actually turning the other direction.
Yeah, it's a 180 running the other direction.
Yeah, and it's sin. The word sin is an old term used in archery. That means you've missed the mark.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's correcting and saying, I don't want to go that direction anymore because a ship that's 1 degree off in the long run is going to be way off course. I want to repent and turn away from that. We learn lessons in life, and we learn that I don't want to touch that burner anymore, and I'd rather do it this way.
Yeah.
So with my kids, it's the same, and I hope that I can be a dad that doesn't overreact if things go bad.
Let me know when you figure that
boy.
out. Let me know, because I'm in the bad camp on that one. Yeah.
And that instead I can always keep a line of communication open. There's a friend of mine who I asked him. He has 4 daughters, and he also grew up with sisters, and there was no dad in the picture, and so he kind of was a dad to his sisters as well. And I asked him how he raised such a good family. He said that a big part of it was just keeping good communication open, that you're the type of person that your kids want to talk to, that they'll be excited to come and connect with you, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah.
But if they know that you're the person that's going to overreact, even if they've done something wrong, then you might not be somebody that they want to come talk to. But I'd rather have my kids come and trust me. And again, biblical lens here. That's an example that I think God as a father gives us. Hopefully, if we've ever messed up with something, that we can go to him still and know that he's like the father of the prodigal son who's running back and saying, I'm welcoming you back because you've changed your ways.
Yeah. Oh, man, it's so good, because you hit it right on the head of the nail, just like of having that demeanor of allowing your kids and the people that you work with to be able to make mistakes, because we do all make mistakes. And on top of that, it's also being able to communicate to that person that you are no less of a person because of the mistake you made. Because we make a mistake, and then we own that mistake, and then we make that mistake who we are. Like, oh, I'm a failure. Oh, I suck at, like, so for the spoiler alert, I thought he was going to talk about me when he's talking about the person on the production team. You know who you are. Luckily, it was someone in a different department of production. But
so I don't know if you've mentioned that you help out with the production department.
No, I have. I have not mentioned that. But there is something really cool, and that's one of the insider things that I kind of get to see of Tim, of you, of like you truly are a very genuine person, a very transparent person, and in terms of like the forgiveness piece, you've gotten to mix some like amazing venues. I'm sure you've never made mistakes in those events.
No, I've never made mistakes. I've been in some big events. I've mixed for thousands of people. The mix would be same if you're with thousands or if you're with hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
With the room that gets bigger, you add more reverb into it. But no, I'd love to. I'd love to mix for a room of hundreds of thousands. It'd be fun.
Yeah.
But no, I've been in some big events before.
So in those events, in different kind of atmospheres that you've been in before, where you've made mistakes, and when you're in any form of production or music, when you make a mistake, it's not just you that knows, it's everyone that knows, and it's really easy to take on that failure. I'm curious, how have you learned to understand forgiveness, not only for yourself, but also to give forgiveness to other people? Because forgiveness, I would imagine, is a pretty big aspect of your life. How does forgiveness kind of play in your life today based off of what you've experienced in the past?
It's huge. So forgiveness, when I think about forgiveness, I think about if somebody is asking me to forgive them, I guess I would look at their heart, behind it. So if there's somebody on the team who's just not aligning to the culture or the vision of what we're doing, and they do something that's way off the rails and ask for forgiveness, are they going to do that again, or was it a mistake?
Yeah.
So, luckily I get to work with a team where people really genuinely are trying to work for excellence, do their best. We work with a lot of volunteers who are not professionals. And, one of the things that we try to do is to train them in a safe environment so that when they're in a live setting, that they're not uncomfortable, that they have a measure of knowing what to expect, and that we can also have a person available to help. So if we have a team of volunteers that, if camera 2 needs help, that there's a floater who can go and help them out. But forgiveness, I guess to answer that question specifically, I guess I would see, are they truly repentant? Are they trying to make a change? Or did they do XYZ on purpose? As far as mistakes that happen in live production, those happen all the time. We've come to begin to expect it. We just don't know what's going to be next.
Yeah.
And that's been an interesting transition, because the more experience that I have in a production career, the more mistakes you've seen. I remember talking to somebody who is a touring, production professional, and very good at what he does. And when you're younger and you haven't seen as much large-scale production, then the smallest thing can be a big deal. And so with this person, we saw one of our side screen LEDs had a whole row that just started flickering. And, everybody around me that, was at a lower level experience, we all started saying, what are we going to do?
The sky is falling.
And yeah, exactly. And this one person he was just sitting there, and he was just looking at it and analyzing. He's just troubleshooting what we can do to fix it and when we can fix it. But I went up later and I asked him, you're so calm under pressure. That was a big deal for us. Why was it not a big deal for you? And he listed off some experiences that he's had that are a big deal, where tens of thousands of dollars of pre-production and preparation are on the line, and then something goes wrong and you only get one shot at this one thing and it fails. That's a big deal. That's a lot of money at some big event that he did that's just gone. So just to see an LED screen with a couple tiles not working, that's not a big deal for him. So you start to either, and I think it depends on the person, you can lengthen your leash or your wick, if you want to say it. Talk about overreacting. You can lengthen that fuse, or you can shorten the fuse. Sadly, there's a couple people in the circle that I work with, and they know this one sound tech who notoriously had the shortest fuse ever. He wasn't working in giant productions, but he would overreact to the smallest thing. If you took your microphone and made a small adjustment, he would come and yell at you.
Wow.
And there was one time that there was a floor wedge monitor that was not needed, and he came up and unplugged it and literally just threw it. Just really an explosion waiting to happen. Yeah, we don't want that.
Yeah.
I'd rather have that, especially with volunteers or even people who are paid to work there. I'd hope to create a place where people can work with excellence, but really love what they're doing and love the people they work with as well.
I love that you give that analogy of the wick, because it's so true in many of our lives that we look at every single thing that's happening as like a 5 alarm of like, oh my gosh, everything is burning to the ground. We're not going to make it through this. When if you were to elongate that time of just looking at it and saying, well, actually, is it really that big of a deal in hindsight, in the bigger picture of things? In fact, I love kind of that idea, because right before we even started recording, you were showing me some really cool work that you've been doing of like vision, but then also the biblical focus of like, this is why, this is our vision. This is, the Bible tells us to be this way, and this is why, this is one of our principles of how we want to show up and how we serve. So I think that's really awesome. I am curious because there are a ton of volunteers that you work with. It's one thing to be in an organization where you have a bunch of employees and you say, hey, this is what I need done, go do it. And here are the reparations that happen because you didn't do this. It's completely different when working with volunteers. Volunteers, you have to create an amount of trust with them, relationship with them, but there's also that dichotomy of you still have to get things done, right? And production. How have you balance that in your mind? And maybe you're still working to balance that, but how do you inspire excellence with volunteers who are giving of their time because they want to serve, but maybe they're not quite hitting the mark the way that you need it to, like the minimum mark? How do you inspire people to engage? Because I think there's a lot of people out there that are in volunteer organizations and they say, I can't get my people to show up. I can't, like, it's surprising to me that you can ask people to show up at the end of a really long day and say, hey, we're gonna work on this piece of production for the next 2 or 3 hours. And people will show up and they'll give their time and they're doing it with excellence. How do you build that kind of culture?
That's a great question. Well, I guess, first of all, I don't think we've arrived at it.
Yeah.
I hope we never get to the point where we say we've arrived, because, we continually want to always improve and get better. So a couple thoughts as you were presenting the question. One is to have a reason to volunteer. Church is a place where people go voluntarily anyways if they just want to attend. And they go because it's something that they believe in. And so I think that's a big driver. And then again, from a spiritual lens, it's not just the person saying, I like this, I believe in it, but it's also the working of the Lord in their hearts, I believe, to say, you should try this. You should step out in this area. So, it could be a balance of those things for them to first come in the door. Now, that's easy to say, but how do you create a culture where they want to keep coming? You can't just say that about any churches. There's a lot of churches who, unfortunately, have caused a lot of damage. A church is a place where it's inherently there's trust that's built. We don't want to just rely on that. I think one of the things that I've tried to do is step out of a staff role, step out of a director role, and just remember what it's like to be a volunteer. And one of the mile marker volunteering things that I did was stepping into another production element. This is years before I worked at the church, and went and helped volunteer at a production storehouse downtown. And I remember walking in, and it wasn't church related at all. It was just a professional rental shop, and they needed some preparation done for something. And just walking in and not knowing where to go, it was, I don't know if I had anxiety, but it was just, I was a little confused and I don't know what to do. And so then I sit and wait, and I'm around strangers and I haven't met them before. By the end of the day, it's fine, but all these thoughts go through your head. And, I've known people who approach things with a lot of anxiety. Our church has home groups. And I remember talking to somebody and saying, you should come to our home group, only to find out that she had actually driven by the front of the house and never come in because she was so nervous. I try to remember that with volunteers when they come in, that they might be nervous. They most likely are not equipped to do this. We have a lot of people that come, we're running a production department. A big need for us is with camera operators. And a lot of them maybe have never operated a camera before.
When they think of cameras, they think of the huge, like VHS, like massive cameras.
Either that or the iPhone.
Yeah, I can hold an iPhone for service.
Wasn't the last Super Bowl halftime show filmed almost exclusively on iPhone?
Yeah, I believe so.
Oh boy, I mean, it's amazing.
It's a slippery slope.
We're not doing live broadcasts on iPhone, but what we want is, I want to remember what it was like for me to be a volunteer, and I want to allow people to come into a place and be welcomed, come in and have it be warm and inviting, and come in and give them direction and equip them and say, here's what you can expect, here's what we're about. Here's a position, would you like to do this position? Great. Now we want to equip you to do this in a safe environment, and allow them a safe space to make those initial steps. So we do a lot of our training during rehearsals. Most of our services are live broadcast. On weekends, we have 4 live broadcast services, and then 1 that's not live broadcast. But we'll still bring in camera operators and have them practice in a room with 1,000 people, and actually that gives them the opportunity to see and hear how it's going to go in a safe space. And I mean, allow them a chance to come also and get feedback, closing that circle of communication, coming back and saying, how did it feel? You tell me. And also, here's some things that we saw. We try to provide a multi-view for them to see, here's a good example, here's what other camera operators were doing, here's what the director was seeing, and why they called you to this specific shot, and to help them learn. One thing that I wanted to mention is there's a really good friend of mine who lives here locally. He's a world-class audio technician, and he's stepped out of the audio industry now. It's hard to make a living, but his name is Weston, and he once told me that he got to volunteer, and he remembers volunteering, and it was worth it because he got to volunteer in something that had a lot of excellence. So not only is it something you believe in, and not only is there a culture and an atmosphere, an environment that you are excited to go and be around, but then you get to be a part of something that you can look at and say, that was awesome. And it's an excellent product. And I think you just combine some of those pieces, and that's why people keep coming back. And people can volunteer for a season. The other thing that I want to be very careful of is to not put undue stress on the shoulders of people who are volunteers. I've seen that before too. A lot of smaller churches really heavily have to rely on a volunteer team. And I've known a guy before who was the only sound tech. And there was a story of a time where his church committed to doing some drum recital for a church. And he found out about it after it had been committed and scheduled. And they said, well, you need to run the audio for this. And he said, well, I'm not even available on that night. And they said, oh, well, we'll have to cancel the event. And
no pressure.
No pressure. And he's got a career elsewhere. I mean, he's only volunteering to do this, but it just is, it's not reasonable to put that much pressure on a volunteer. And the communication was really bad in that instance anyways. But, I want our volunteers to come because they love it. They have fun, and they can keep learning and keep becoming more excellent. If they get really good at a pedestal camera, then maybe they want to learn a track camera. Maybe they want to learn a handheld camera. Maybe at some point they want to start learning directing and cutting and calling shots. And we're happy to do that for them. The more excellent they become in the craft, the more value it brings to what we're trying to do as well.
I think you like your vision of how you see things is really unique. And I love that you think of things in production style, because if you can look at life in that way, it really enriches your life, because every single person in your life around you, they have specific tools that they've been given, and whether they've been equipped or not, they're in a position. And the question is are you equipping them? Are you educating them in a way that they can be most successful? And that's what I've loved about watching you from afar, is you're really good at that. You're really good at checking in with volunteers. You're really good at checking in to say, hey, how can we improve this piece of education to make things better? Like, I remember, it was funny because one of the first times that we really actually got to talk was the videos. Yeah. You messaged me and said, hey, because I said, hey, let's grab coffee sometime. And you said, sure. Hey, are you free right now? And I was like, well, yeah, actually. And so you're like, okay, well, me and David, one of the other guys, me and David we're on our way over to your house right now. I was like, oh no, I need to clean. Like, this place is a disaster. That doesn't matter. But you guys came over and you guys started showing me what you were doing, like the aesthetics of how you're presenting things. Like, you see things from a very big, zoomed out picture. But what I love is there was a moment where you said, this is really good information, but for the people that are just getting into working on cameras or this part of production, we don't want to drown them in information. Let's pull back a little bit and let's make this tiered. And I remember you saying that because in the back of my head, I was thinking, yes, so many times we have people who walk in to volunteer to help or that are in a position, and we give them way too much. We don't check to make sure that they have the training. We don't make sure that they have the tools. And that's something that I really value about you, is that you look at things from a big perspective, big picture of saying, we can start here. This is really great, but how do we get them there? Yes, we want them to be, really good on all the cameras, but how do we get them really good on just this one camera? Okay, this is how you zoom in. This is how you focus. This is how you turn the camera on. Like, really basic things, because a lot of the volunteers are coming in and they've never been in an environment. And that's what's really cool about the way that you look at things, is that you look at things from the perspective, not just as a production person, but just as a human being, of someone. We've heard multiple times from the pastor of the church that you have people who are like surgeons and lawyers that are out parking cars for people. You'd never guess, but you have people from all walks of life that are coming in to serve. And one of the things that you do really well is you equip your team, you equip your people. I'm curious, who are some of the people that have equipped you to be where you are today?
My wife.
That's a good answer.
And God.
Actually,
definitely my wife.
Yeah.
She is somebody who has chosen to stay at home to invest in our kids. And
which is not an easy job at all. No. You probably have the easier job in life right now.
Oh boy. And I mean, she's amazing at it. And there's a time where you can think, oh, well, I'm the one with the financial paying job. I mean, her job pays dividends hugely in ways that
way better later on down the road.
But I'm the one that brings home dollars. I guess I'll just say that. And so you think a common American thought is that you come home and I'm tired. I got to kick my feet up. I got to rest. I mean, she's been working so hard throughout the day. And, we have kids in 3 different schooling situations right now. 2 of them are homeschooled. And so she is she's a former teacher. And so now she's doing her work, not for financial gain, at home while taking care of the house. And I mean, she does so much, but she does it with this heart that stems from love. She very much cares about what she does. And I mean, it's really encouraging for me to see that. And, I hope to bring the same thing as a dad, as a husband, but also at work as a director, that it's because I really care. I care about the team. I care about the staff, the volunteers. I care about the message of what we're doing. I care about the excellence. And I do honestly care about all these things. Seeing the hard work that she puts in just because she cares, that's a big influence. Influences, I try to pull influences from everywhere, from all sorts of people. And I can think back throughout my life and find people that are friends, people that are mentors, people who I've never met before, but there's some aspect of what they do that just really I find encouraging and want to pull from that. So I have, a few mentors in very specific realms, but no, I try to pull influences from each person every day.
That's so good. I have absolutely loved our conversation. You have such a rich background, and I appreciate you jumping on or coming over, I guess I should say here. And for those of you that are listening, I want to encourage you that if you don't have a community and you want to be a part of something really awesome, the More Than Before community is a great opportunity for you to connect. There are 3 calls every single week where I jump on, I give a teaching. 2 of those are biblical calls where I teach the Bible and do a little excerpt, and then we open up for some coaching, some questions, some thoughts that maybe you had from some of the teaching. But then on one of those calls, it's also an entrepreneur call where you can jump on with any questions that you have about business, about entrepreneurship, and I walk you through those things. So if you're interested in that, check in the show notes. You'll be able to find out a little bit more. I do have one more question here for you. I actually have a number of questions that are going on in my head, but one I think that is really interesting to me is legacy. Recently you got to see your father ushered into the kingdom, which is really cool. But there's also that painful aspect of that too, of having a loved one pass. I'm curious, as you have gone through that period with your father and watching him, how do you want to leave your legacy for your boys? Like if there was one thing that you want each of your boys to know and understand as they move forward in their life, what would those 3 things be? One for each boy.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Again, from a biblical lens, I believe the most important thing on earth is God and the God of the Bible. And so the most important thing that I would like to leave them or anybody with is a relationship with my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. If they don't get anything else, I hope they walk away with that. I learn a lot from people all around me. I've learned a lot from my dad on things to do. I've learned a lot of things not to do. And I'm sure my kids are going to learn the same thing. I hope that they find genuine faith and trust in the Bible as the biggest thing.
I love that because it's so easy to get wrapped up in life. Early on in life, music was something that you wanted to pursue with vigor, probably in a different light than what you...
There's other things that you weren't able to scrape up on me.
They were there. I just didn't ask you about that.
I thought one day I was going to be an actor. I thought one day I was going to be an astronaut.
Really?
Yeah.
That's really cool. What changed?
With the, I think looking at the requirements of what you had to do back then, if you wanted to be a pilot for an astronaut. My dad had a college roommate from the Naval Academy who became a pilot with NASA and eventually became space station commander.
Wow.
I believe Robert Cabana. If you're listening to this. Dropping a name. But I wanted to be an astronaut. You had to have 20/20 eyesight, and I didn't have that. So that was an easy no for me. And then the only other way you could be an astronaut is because you were like Albert Einstein.
Yeah. Brilliant.
And then you could go to outer space. And eventually you could go to outer space if you were extremely rich as well. So, I mean...
You had a couple things that were fighting you there.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out which box to check.
Which one should I pursue first?
Boy, I wanted to be the professional musician. I thought about being an actor. I thought about all sorts of things. But, the Bible says, in his heart a man plans his course, but the Lord determines his steps. And I love music. I loved being a part of music, playing music, making music. And... the path that the Lord put me on was getting involved in a church that I also love. And there became an opportunity to work with music in a production sense. And I was so excited about that. And I actually went through ebbs and flows because I was the sound technician. And there was a season where I thought, this is awesome. This is the best. And then there were seasons where I was thinking, how come I'm not the guy on stage? I'm a musician. This is what I've done. And I'm paid to be the guy not on stage. And that was hard. And eventually, what I started to do was learn and love the craft of helping the whole production to become excellent. You know, it's interesting. We were training somebody yesterday. It was their very first time actually touching faders during a service. We had somebody right next to him. I talked to him afterwards, and I just said, how did it go for you? We walked outside, and I just asked him, what was that like? And he said, boy, that was so much fun. But he was saying, the musicians put so much trust in you as the sound technician. He goes, I can make them sound terrible if I wanted to. I can really screw things up. And I was like, yeah.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, you can. But our goal is to do things excellent, to serve. And that's a big, big piece of what, I envision for my role, that I envision for the team. I hope that we can all serve. As a team director, there's ways that I'm trying to serve the leadership up the org chart, and there's ways I'm trying to serve people below me by helping to build them up and serve the greater team. And for our staff team to help serve the volunteers by equipping them, helping them to become great at what they do and serve the purpose. And that our volunteers are coming because they're trying to serve the message of that's being put out and do it with excellence. And I mean, there's a Bible verse in Philippians that talks about how Jesus considered equality with God not something to be grasped, but he humbled himself to being a servant and to be obedient even unto death on the cross. And so here you have, again, for those of your listeners who might not be Bible-based, but here you have what I believe is the Son of the God of the universe. That's a big deal. And what he does is he comes and serves. And that's what I want to be like. And that's the position that I slowly was able to form into, instead of being the person who
was served.
Yeah, was served. So to say that I'm a person who's serving others. And I think that's a heart condition that I had to learn. Now, and I have to be careful by saying that, because we have an amazing team, and the people on stage, I see them as also people who have a heart to serve. And they do a lot of events, they do a lot of preparation, and they have a right heart to come and to serve the people, to usher them into a time of worship, to spend a lot of time in Bible preparation so that people can be equipped and how to read the Bible, how to study it. So I just know these people. I've worked with them for so long that they're serving as well. And so I think for myself, I had to take on that heart of serving. And I mean, I guess to speak to my philosophy on your podcast, the more than before, it's more than a podcast. But that's how I've grown, is just by trying to humble myself to try to become somebody who serves others as opposed to self-serving. I just see a lot more growth in that, a lot more benefit to myself and to everyone else as well.
Well, and there's something about that where when you stop trying to make it happen in your life to be the focal point, and you start looking at the gifts and the talents that you've been given, and you say, how can I serve other people with these? How can I make other people's lives better with what I'm doing? And then you take it one step further and you say, how can I know God and make God known? Because at the end of the day, that is truly, because everyone has like, this is my purpose. I'm good. My purpose in life is to do blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Okay. But at the end of your life, every single one of us, our purpose in life is to know God and to make him known. And how do we do that? And, neither one of us is perfect. We are fallible. We make mistakes left and right. Just follow us for more than 5 minutes and you'll find a mistake. But what I love is that in every single aspect of life, you are learning what does that look like to love and encourage and to lift people up, to say, hey, like, I'm not great, but I'm the only thing that's good in me is because God has done something good in my life. And my wife and I, we always talk about this even with our kids, because if you have kids right now and you're going, oh my gosh, am I screwing up my kids? Like I yelled at my kids last night because they've put their fork on the wrong side of the dishwasher. I don't know. Or they tracked mud through your living room. Or for us, our son defecated in his pants again, and we're going through the potty training stuff. We're like, no, why? It's so easy to get wrapped up in life that we forget that it's all about God. It's all about Christ. And that should be encouraging to us, because at the end of the day, if you can introduce your kids to Jesus, if you can introduce your friends to Jesus by the way that we act and love and care for each other and point to him versus pointing to us, man, that's a huge, powerful thing.
Well, I 100% agree. And I think you can do that in excellence as well. And that's something that I love to do. Like we were talking about volunteers, having them come and be a part of something that's excellent. Now, you could have a worship leader with a genuine heart who has an out-of-tune guitar, and it could be the most fulfilling time ever.
For them.
And if you have the out-of-tune guitar and a great heart, not a lot of people are going to be able to join that person, maybe some. If you have an amazing production, but you don't have the right heart, then I think that's missing the mark as well. And I love striving for doing something really well and trying to do it with the right heart. Some of the greatest leaders, you asked about people who have influenced me. One of in the production world, one of the biggest influences is a guy in church production world. His name is Chris Greeley, and he models that very well. I mean, he truly loves the Lord, but he's amazing. He hears things at a level that I think most people don't hear, and he has philosophies behind that. He doesn't like to listen on cheaper speakers. He has tuned his ears to listening to things on high-end speakers, and that way he can more easily align to what sounds good. And now he's sought after as a mix engineer, and I'm blessed to call him a friend. But he also, I've sat before in a time with him where he's led a group in a quick morning devotional Bible study. I've sat before and talked with him about what the Lord is doing in our lives, and he truly, truly loves God, and that's the purpose in what he's doing. And he's got amazing offers to do what he does outside of an arena of worshiping the Lord. And he's done some job opportunities. If it's something that he truly doesn't believe in or doesn't like, he'll take his name off of it. But he primarily what he strives to do is to glorify the Lord in all that he does, not just with the music that he mixes, but in the process that he goes through to do it. That's really encouraging to me. Hopefully we can just do excellence and serve. One of the guys that I was thinking of, sorry, we're still having coffee, so I'm not done.
I still have coffee left. We got at least another hour.
I'm going to have to trim this down. One of
No.
we got to finish this up. One of the guys who, when I think of excellence, actually I do a lot of analogies with music mixing and food creation, and I think of Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll get to enjoy a food or dish that was a Gordon Ramsay prepared something someday. I doubt it. But Gordon, if you're listening to this.
Not a sponsor. Yeah. No.
But, even in the TV shows that he does, and even when he's being hard on people, he's a very, very sought after culinary expert. And you see a side of him where he's really hard on people, but you also see a side of him where he's working to develop people, and he really cares. And, I think he's doing a lot of these TV shows, one, because it's lucrative for his career, but two, I do believe that he has helped people to grow in their skills, in their career. And now that's with food. It's with a consumable. But there's excellence in what he does. I hope that I can do the same thing with our team. If I'm the only guy that at a church who can make a mix sound awesome, I'm just going to get burned out doing it. If I can help to develop a team, then that's awesome. If they can all mix really well, then we can all feed and bounce off of each other. One of the things when we were talking about training and equipping people, that I wanted to come back to is we created those videos, right? And we're still creating those videos. And the videos can be a great introductory, just blanket statement of here's how you turn on a camera, so that when they come and see the camera for the first time, they aren't searching for the on button.
Yeah.
And they've gone through it and they know that it's right here. Hey, I've seen this on a video and now I can go and actually hit that button. Here's a focus control. Here's a zoom control. That we can give them a basic introduction. But that point going forward, we can really tailor the training as well. And that's something that that I love to do. Every person learns differently. And I hope to create a team that can also culture that as well, that we can foster how people learn, because some people might be learning differently than the other person. This person might take more time, and you have to tell them 5
Some people
times.
are a little slower here.
Versus somebody else who gets it.
Yeah.
And they're really fast, but they're arrogant. And you have to change those things as well. And we face both of those. We have some people, in the audio mixing world, we use plugins, right? And we have some people that'll go in and just start messing with all the plugins. We have other people who will never touch a plugin. They'll never even open it up. But that's the secret sauce and what makes the mix sound really good. And in both those cases, some people, you have to pull it back when they say, oh, I know how to do this. Pull them back. Show me what you did, because you did it wrong. And let's work on the self-awareness of what you just said, right? And the humility, the teachability, flexibility. Versus somebody who says, I've never touched that before and I'm afraid to touch it. Well, it's a tool in your belt. So I want to encourage you, let's find a safe space where you can crank those knobs all the way on, all the way off, turn it on, turn it off, try it, and understand the tools that you're using. Whether it's Gordon Ramsay, he knows all the tools in the kitchen that he's going to use. If it's a carpenter, somebody who's working on building a house, they know the tools. So then when they get into that tight spot, they know exactly what tool they're going to pick up and use. And so we have to try to foster and culture that for each person to learn how they learn.
That's so good.
I love it.
I love that so much. Excellence. Be excellent in all that you do. Tim, thank you so much for coming over, for giving us your time, telling us your story, but then also inspiring a lot of people to be excellent in all things that they do. And, if you want to find out more, if you want to see some of the work that he's behind with teams, go check out Athey Creek Church. They've got some really great production quality. I can say that because I'm behind it and I'm constantly doing the wrong thing, but he's there tapping me on the shoulder saying, hey, your focus is soft. No, it has been so good to have you on. For those of you listening, make sure you like this, share this with a friend, at least one person right now in your life would love to hear some of the things that Tim had to say today. So until next time, remember to be more, see more, and experience more than before.